The Terminator franchise has had a very rocky history, with everything released over the past 30 years failing to reach the heights that the first two entries in the franchise established. Despite these entries ranging from decent to utterly fucking terrible, I do think that every installment in the franchise has had something to bring to the table, starting with Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. One thing that I really liked, a premise that this film builds up for the first 20 minutes, is the idea of Skynet targeting people other than John Connor. A lot of the franchise revolves around him and Sarah Connor, and as such many of the movies and spin-off media includes them in the story one way or the other. But the idea that Skynet would only consider these two the threats worthy to go after limits the world building potential. And so the idea that Skynet would go back in time and eliminate other key players in the war is a really great idea, with lots of different outcomes that could affect the future media that starred them. Maybe we see how it takes Skynet even longer to lose because some key players were eliminated and couldn't assist in the war. Or Skynet lost quicker because they learned how to defeat them a lot earlier and share this information with others. You could have a show that looks at the same series of events and see how different they become because of the constant use of time travel and changing variables. I also like that Skynet's rise and takeover will happen differently depending on what time it is able to start and come online. It's established previously that Skynet would usually rise in the 90s, slowly start to learn and come to terms with its existence, and then attack humanity when they try and destroy it for becoming too sentient. So I think it's a neat idea that its rise and motives would change depending on how much information it has access to, with it coming online when the World Wide Web exists, learning all the horror that humanity has inflicted on the planet, and then decides to just wipe them out because of some sense of twisted spite. I like the aesthetics of the war we see in the opening. I know it's a bit cliche to have someone heroically posing in front of the American flag, but I think it works here, with these last beacons of humanity finally rallying together, and the unrelenting nature of these Skynet robots is very unsettling, just a mindless wave of grey and steel that mercilessly destroys everything in its path. A Terminator that has the ability to use its own computing systems to hack into other pieces of machinery and technology is also a pretty cool addition to the Terminators. I don't think that the TX is very impressive, especially not compared to the T-1000, but its ability to hack other assets to assist in its mission really helps to add to the seriousness and overbearing nature of Skynet, as even some things as mundane as cars can be used to hunt down and put pressure on the targets. I think the action scenes are actually quite memorable. I understand that they're a bit over the top at times, but seeing a Terminator get smashed through buildings and wrecking everything around them really does help to cement how strong and durable they are. Finally, and this is a bit more of a controversial idea, but I think it would have been interesting to see John Connor struggling to live his everyday life after everything he experienced in Terminator 2. Seeing the mental toll on John, refusing to settle down or have any real social circle because he's so paranoid that he didn't stop Skynet and that they'll come after him again, is a really interesting idea. Now, obviously an entire Terminator film where there's no Terminators wouldn't be very interesting, but if they ever made an anthology TV show, maybe they could do an episode where in one universe they did stop Skynet overall. But it took such a mental toll on John that he's forced himself to become a shell of a person would be an interesting and unique idea for the franchise. Moving on from 3, we have Salvation. Out of all the sequels after 2, I actually find this one to be the best of them because it's actually doing something that isn't just send a Terminator back in time to kill someone. Being able to actually see the war and the struggles that mankind goes through just to be able to survive, it makes it one of the most memorable films out of the bunch. I also think this opening scene is just really cool. It essentially turns it into future Vietnam, with people hanging out of helicopters as they storm the fields while warthogs napalm the fuck out of the facility. It's an interesting parallel. It just shows how capable John has made the resistance, and it's just a cool visual spectacle. Marcus is the most logical evolution to the previous Terminators in my opinion. The T-800s and T-1000s both have their own pros and cons, but the main con both share is the fact that they are machines, and at the end of the day when it comes to infiltration there's only so much they can do before you'd notice they're not really talking like humans. But if you were to just put an actual human in a robot body that can be hijacked by Skynet, then you'd have someone who genuinely acts human and can infiltrate human settlements from complete ignorance. I also like Marcus as a character. Seeing his journey from a remorseful, guilt-filled man willing to die because he has nothing else to offer humanity, to becoming a hero of the resistance who's willing to die to ensure that humanity's hope lives on, makes him one of my favourite characters in the franchise. Seeing Skynet actually being intelligent and sadistic also helps to add how we perceive it. In the previous films it was mostly a unseen entity that decided to go to war with humanity for some reason or another. Here it shows that they're actually pretty fucking psychotic and capable of exploiting human behaviour in order to trap their most despised enemy. Seeing both Skynet and John trying to use their knowledge of time travel and previous possibilities to outperform one another is also something I like about this film, as John uses knowledge he got from previous time travelers to try and take out Skynet early. Meanwhile, Skynet is aware that John is using this knowledge to outperform them, and so they decide to use this over-reliance on it to lead him into a trap that almost kills him, which is a great overarching use of the time travel mechanic. Finally, it's just nice to see all the different machines that Skynet uses besides the infiltrator Terminators. We have the big tanky T-600s, the little hovering scout drones, the big aircrafts, and the weird big ass capture droids. It's nice to see a bit of variety in the machines, even if the implementation is a bit off. Next up is Terminator Genisys. This is probably the worst of the sequels, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy certain aspects of it. I like the idea of revisiting a previous movie and its events and seeing how adding or removing things from it would lead to different outcomes. I think they change far too much here, but it's an interesting concept nonetheless. I thought the way the T-1000 is killed is pretty enjoyable in a fucked up way. Seeing this liquid metal machine desperately struggling to survive as it slowly melts away is one of the few cool visuals this movie has, and it shows how with the right preparation you can take down something as deadly as the T-1000. The idea that Skynet or the Resistance could send their targets back very far in the past, so that instead of just pursuing a target in the present day, they decide to send them to infiltrate various governments and organisations so they learn the infrastructure and gather resources to help them on their mission. It's a very unique idea in this franchise. Having Pop stay behind and become a construction worker on the building that will house Skynet so that he knows how to infiltrate it and destroy it later is another great use of the time travel mechanic of this franchise. Finally, the helicopter destruction scene. The Terminator bodies are designed to take punishment, especially the T-800s, so using their own bodies as weapons against vehicles is pretty enjoyable spectacle. And the final sequel so far, Dark Fate. Again, not the greatest, but it has some things I enjoy. The Rev 9 is a great blend of the T-800 and the T-1000. Having the sturdiness and strength of the former, and the maneuverability and shapeshifting of the latter. And having both parts of them operating at the same time helps to add to the tension. I also like that it doesn't just immediately eliminate threats with violence, and actually tries to be just incognito and blend in until it's ready to strike. I also really enjoyed the concept of a purposeless machine. A Terminator kills its target and then just has no idea what to do with itself is a pretty original idea for this franchise, and it's just a shame that they decided to use this idea on the Terminator that killed John Connor. I feel like this is a concept they should have explored fully by itself in a different show or movie. One thing I really loved about both of these characters is the idea that time travel will eventually end up creating a scenario where a Terminator sent by Skynet or Legion will go into the past, only to encounter a obstacle they have no memory or information on, leading to them being genuinely confused. I thought this was a great idea. Watching the Rev 9 see Carl and have no idea how to proceed because he has no idea what he is a pretty great moment. Speaking of Terminators, the idea of Terminator Hunters is also pretty cool, with the concept of the Resistance sending someone back in time that has a list of all the Terminators and where they'll appear, allowing this individual to plan for their arrival and eliminate them to help keep the Resistance strong in the future. Again, another good use of the time travel mechanic that I wish they could have explored further. Finally, I think Grace, or at the very least the concept of her, is a really great take on cybernetically enhanced humans. She has technology that allows her to overclock her body functions, giving her greater reflexes, strength and ignorance of pain. But it comes at the cost of her constantly needing medication to balance out her body chemistry, and she can't overexert herself too much or she'll burn out. And I think she's arguably the best character of the film because of how strong and how delicate she is. And there we go, everything that I liked about the bad Terminator sequels. Do I imagine any more being made at this point? Probably not. They seem scared to make anything after the previous two films completely shit the bed. But the franchise isn't entirely dead yet. There have been a few pieces of media made recently, and considering we have entered the age of streaming, it would be cool to see maybe a few more of these ideas fleshed out in some TV shows, or maybe even a movie or two. Thanks for watching, lads and lasses. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. Sharing always helps, and if you're feeling really generous, please consider my Patreon or YouTube membership. I also have a Twitter and occasionally I do live streams. But most of all, I just hope you had a great day and hopefully I will see you in the next video.